Hey everybody, it's the interview queen Alicia Atout here, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to my interview with Andy Black of Black Veil Brides. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
The name, the interview queen, is that a new addition to your repertoire? Because
It
I don't know. The last time
is.
we did an interview, I don't know if that was part of the thing. But congratulations on your royalty
Why,
that has
thank
occurred.
you. Yes, since having you on a couple years back, I actually started interviewing wrestlers, and I'm a backstage TV host for a wrestling company. So, everyone has their little monikers, their gimmicks. Figured a
I
fan
love it.
labeled me
I think it's
that.
great.
Thank you so much. I
Who,
appreciate
if
it.
not you, who is the interview queen? You have to be it.
Very
So,
true.
congratulations on the royalty. I'm not the queen of anything. So,
Maybe
you
one
know.
day.
We'll try. I did not turn off notifications on my phone, so which is a terrible idea when you're doing a Zoom interview. So now I'm just getting my publicist asking me if I'm currently in the Zoom with you over and over again, because I keep trying to push the notification back up, but then it's just
Right.
making it worse. So now he's sending me the Zoom link, and
Oh my
yeah. So if
gosh.
you see me touching my phone, like floating my thumb over the thing, that is why.
Maybe you can quickly find the little thumbs up emoji or something, or just
No
dad
chance.
style it
I'm
and
going
hit
to,
K.
yeah. I'm going to be the type of person that ignores until I'm done with this interview, and then I'll say I already did it.
Well, I appreciate the commitment.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
I do want to start off just by asking how things are going over there. It seems like your downtime during this whole pandemic has really been spent getting so much work done. So just let me know a little bit about how you've been spending it outside of that and how things are going.
Well, in January, prior to the pandemic starting, or at least us being consciously aware of it in the world, we had started work on the record that is now the Phantom Tomorrow, and that was the goal. I had already come up with the story concepts, and the Blackbird was there, and all the ideas that you're kind of seeing that are now coming out were drawings or bits and pieces of ideas way back then. Then we were meant to go on a North American tour within this moment. Then we were meant to go on another tour in the European areas, and then we're going to come back and do a headlining tour in the States and all this stuff. And then the idea was that we were going to kind of parcel out the recording schedule between times that we're in LA. Then when we get back from a tour, like I think we had 2 weeks in September, we were going to devote, and it was going to be one of those situations where it would be a couple weeks here and there. And then we played one show on March 6th in Mexico City. That was the first show of a tour. Headline show. We're down in Mexico City, sold out show, first show with Lonnie, big, exciting day. And literally, I think it was 3 or 4 days later, we were notified that Live Nation had shut everything down, and that obviously this was a very real thing and a difficult situation for everybody. And then it just became, basically, it just became, well, now we've already started working on a record. This is what we're going to do. And so I'm very thankful that we had accidentally had the foresight to begin work on an album prior to, a lot of bands now, because there's been so much quote unquote downtime, a lot of bands are getting into the studio now because they're like, well, what do we do?
Yeah.
We were very fortunate that we had already started down that path prior to the pandemic starting. And so we've just been able to really keep our heads down and work through everything, and, try to be as safe as we can. There's issues that arise. Obviously, Jinx was diagnosed with COVID about a week and a half ago. And he's on the mend now. I spoke to him just the other day, and he's doing much better. Saddest thing for him right now is that he and his wife have a newborn child, and he can't be
Oh,
around the
that must
baby
be
right now.
so
But
incredibly difficult.
yeah, it's really sad. But he is physically feeling better, and he told us just yesterday that he's gonna be able to be back to work fairly soon. And what we're doing now is, he's feeling up to now starting to work on string elements and stuff from his home studio. So he's already upright and working and feeling better. But yeah, so those types of things, you try to be as careful as you can. You wear masks, you distance in the studio, you isolate. But living in the world, somebody goes to the gas station, you don't know what could happen there.
Very
So, but
true.
we have been constantly working, constantly putting things together, and we have an album that I believe at this point you'll start to see, a release coming at the beginning of the year, and more singles and stuff in the interim. So yeah, we've just been utilizing this time as a recording time, and it hasn't been really since like the summer of 2012 that we've had this amount of time to work on a record. And so I really think that hopefully
Bit
it
of a
will
silver
show, and
lining.
people will really enjoy it. Yeah, exactly. It's difficult because our job is to tour. That's how, not to get too into the nitty gritty of it, but that's how we make our money. That's how we make a living. And so it's obviously a difficult situation to have the burden of going, well, we can't really do our job. So the only thing we can do is just be creative and push forward that way.
Well, it's great to see that you guys have been able to kind of go through everything happening right now, because it is such a hectic time. And it's not just giving you something to look forward to, but also fans, because like we were kind of briefly mentioning, 2021, the album will drop, The Phantom Tomorrow. And to hear that you have been working on this with ideas since January of this year, is it kind of just filling you with anticipation? Like, how hard is the waiting on your end? Just that whole waiting part of it all. It must kind of drive you a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I'm kind of used to it though, because there's a touch of drama to just about everything we do when it comes to kind of the ornate nature of writing these concept records and everything else. So there's always something people don't know. For me, it was wearing a hat everywhere I went for 2 months after I had already bleached my hair, and people didn't know about that.
Right, good old Andy
I
Blonde now.
Yeah, I had said the other day on my podcast that there was kind of a funny situation where I wasn't thinking, I always call it specific fame in the sense that people know who we are and our band is done well and we have an audience, but like I'm not getting hounded by paparazzi when I go to the grocery store. What will sometimes happen is one person in the grocery store will go, "Hey, aren't you?" And then, it'll be like a selfie situation. So it's not a big deal, but I wasn't thinking, and I needed to get a new phone, and I went to T-Mobile. And while I was in the store, the girl behind the counter was like, "Oh, aren't you Andy from Black Veil Rise?" And I said, "Yeah," but I had my blonde hair, and then I went through the like, "Oh geez, I better like run to the car and get a hat before we take this picture because I don't want to, give it away." So, but yeah, like little things like that. So you've got those moments of like, I know something that no one else knows, and this is exciting and fun, and you kind of, I would say it's more fun to quote unquote like keep the secrets, so to speak. I mean, we've done it a million times. That is my favorite part of a record, is when it is done and I'm listening to it in my car and no one else has heard it yet. And then like the release day, I've said many times, like I kind of stop listening to our records the day that the record comes out, right? Because like
You've heard it for
between,
so long.
yeah, recording it and then it coming out, I'm listening to it constantly for professional functional purposes. What do we need to change? What do we need to do? What's the next stuff? And then once it's out, it's like it's out. There's nothing, it's not, I can't change it. Now it's
And
for you. You know what I
and the
mean?
thing is, you're going to be touring it in a normal circumstance afterwards, then it's going to be drilled into your head over and over again. So you almost need to give
Yeah.
yourself a little bit of that break.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, I think one thing that this whole thing has led to for us is, oh, by the way, there's another text. One thing that this whole thing has led to for us has been the ability to really fully realize concepts and song structure and things that we, admittedly, some of the records in the past, we were very rushed, or if we weren't rushed, there was too much time. I think we took something like 18 months to do Veil. And that was because we just weren't working. Like, we would like come in for a day or two at a time, and then there'd be a long stretch or there'd be a tour or whatever else. And so having this thing where, as soon as I'm done here today doing this like round of interviews I'm going straight to the studio and working on this record. And that's my daily functional schedule right up until, Thanksgiving off, and then right back in the studio the next day. So it's been nice to be able to have that kind of like, we're doing something that we really are taking the time to make great, and no one knows about all the cool shit we've got going on yet.
Well, we're all very excited to see it. Definitely know that. And as you had briefly mentioned, the album is a concept record. Of course, it takes us into this world of an anti-hero and a group of societal outcasts. And it's just, when I first kind of saw the unveiling of it, I'm like, this is so neat. I know how much you love comic books. We've kind of spoke about Batman having you on the show before. So did you almost want to make your own like a musical comic book in a sense? Because that's kind of how everything's coming along to me. It's really neat the way you've been able to project all these ideas, and even in the recent music video, which I'll bring up in a sec, but it really does feel like a real life comic book being brought to life by music.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, that's always the goal. I think for me, my biggest influence is there's like a constant through line between Kiss, obviously, is a huge influence on me and always has been, but also stuff like the storytelling elements of Bruce Springsteen has always been a huge influence on me. So it's not necessarily ornate pageantry and bombast, but the story elements. Like if you listen to Springsteen records, he's telling stories, and they are oftentimes concept oriented records, like the Ghost of Tom Joad and all these records that are built around a story. Famously Kiss tried to do Music from the Elder, and they're like not that band, right? Like they're not the band that's telling you a story, but they have this over the top imagery and all this stuff. And then I think a lesser kind of looked at thing that for me was a huge influence, like to the point where I would walk around school with my little Walkman CD player, listening every day to Meatloaf's "Bat Out of Hell" and Jim Steinman, and like
Great record.
that record of to me it's like a perfect marriage of that Springsteen-esque 70s rock with the ridiculously ornate, stylistically crazy, over the top keyboards and pianos and guitar solos that last 4.5 minutes. Like Bat Out of Hell doesn't get into the song until I think it's like 3 minutes and 30 seconds in before a single word is spoken or a lyric is sung. So all that stuff plays into kind of where Black Veil lands musically from my perspective. And then over time, those sort of like those influences build into kind of what the tapestry, so to speak, of the music is, which is also like, Jake and Jink's heavily influenced by Metallica, and CeCe's influenced by everything from EDM to heavy metal to whatever it is, and Lonnie bringing in kind of being the champion of the band and the old school elements of the band. So I think that's kind of where you find all that stuff. And we've had a lot of success in the past with stuff like Wretched and Divine and more story oriented things. So it's been really fun to take all of that and then combine it with, as you say, like my love of comic books and just big theatrical stuff, and to make it into something that we feel is a new and interesting story. We feel that the content of the story, once people are able to read the whole comic book that we have coming out and listen to the record, it will all make a lot more sense. Obviously, the Scarlet Cross video it's a bit of a cliffhanger. It's kind of a truncated version. We're just introducing characters at that point. But as this thing unfolds and as further music videos come out and everything else, we hope that we really want to build something for people to be lost in, because as a kid, that was my favorite thing, was just to sit with an album or to watch a video or to watch a tape or whatever of my favorite bands and just get lost in that world. And in the world that we live in right now, where so much time is spent just at home, we think that that's a really important thing for people to be able to have that. It's important for us to have it.
It's fun hearing you talk about it. You can tell how passionate you are about so many different things, and you're taking all these different elements and squeezing it into this record release. So I just imagine that your mind with such a cool concept can kind of just run wild. So how do you know when to put a cap on it? Is it kind of hard for you? Because you can kind of bring this in so many different storylines, so many different directions.
Sure, yeah. No, I know what you mean. I think that the biggest thing right now is like there's a lot more than people don't even realize in terms of the scope of how much material we have coming. So perhaps when this is all said and done and you look back on it in 2 years, you could have said maybe he should have put a cap on everything. But that currently, I mean, we're having so much fun writing, and the band is just getting along so well, and we're just clicking. We're like really the name of the game right now for us is like every day we go in and go, let's beat the song we did yesterday. And that is not something that we've had in a long time. For previous records, there was a time where we kind of settled into like, well, we found the single, we found like maybe a second single, and then this is good enough. And that's not where we're at all. We're enjoying each other's company and the kind of creative collaboration so much that we're in a place where every day we feel like we're writing a better song than we did yesterday. So if you have all those songs, what do you do with them? So we think that a lot more material is going to see the light of day than we previously kind of anticipated.
That's super exciting, knowing that you don't really have to put bookends on things. You can do the comic book, you can do more videos down the line. So it's definitely exciting. I can't wait to see what else comes out for it.
Thank you. Yeah. And and again, we've done interviews during the time when I was doing the solo stuff, and obviously we did an interview with Lonnie when he was playing with my solo band, and it's just funny to kind of see the trajectory of everything. And the one thing I try to really impart on people when it comes to the band and where we're at right now is that we're just so excited to be able to do this, and the fact that Scarlet Cross has succeeded to the capacity that it has already. It's a wonderful feeling to know that people still care so passionately about the band, and that we were able to weather the storm of a difficult situation and get into a time in our career where we're just thoroughly enjoying it. I've listened to, in the past, I've kind of been reminded of interviews and stuff. And when I was doing my book that's coming out on the 15th, myself and Ryan Downey, who worked on the book with me, we were listening to old interviews that he had done with me 8-9 years ago. And something that I would always say is kind of like a thing I would constantly say is, well, the band, we don't always get along, or we're coworkers, and, like kind of trying to impress upon people the idea that it's very unlikely for a band to have a friend-like relationship. And I thought for a long time that was the case, because there was this kind of strain within the band and certain elements within that. And that is just not the case anymore. We are genuinely like, we talk every day, whether it's about personal stuff or fun things or crazy fucking whatever, the coronavirus happening or whatever it is. We're all talking every day, even outside the studio.
That's so
And to
awesome.
have that is something that I don't think I really could have anticipated us having 10 years into our career.
I feel like that camaraderie too can really come through on songs because sometimes it sounds silly to say, but you can just feel a song when something's just not working, or you can watch in interviews when there's tension. So the fact that there is that brotherhood that's come along after all these years, that's a really interesting thing to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of funny. You like, there's not much to talk about with people when you're on tour, right? Because like, you can't go,
Same shit, different day.
hey, this crazy thing happened to me yesterday. Yeah, because it happened to them as well. Like everybody's on the same flight, everybody's doing the same stuff. But one of the things that this time at home has given us is that, we're all having our own separate life experiences. Jinx just had a baby. Jinx and Alice just had a baby. So that's a crazy, awesome life experience. All this stuff, these moments that occur, good and bad, that we can talk about. And I think it's making us grow that much closer because we can also reflect on all the shared experiences that we've had over the years, whether it's sleeping basically foot over foot in a van in the early days, or traveling around the world in planes and causing chaos and whatever it is.
Well, I'm glad that we had briefly earlier mentioned Scarlet Cross, the brand new music video that the band has put out. Because when I first watched it, first you're just kind of captivated by everything going on. There's so much to focus on: the pyro, cool characters, the costumes. And there was one specific moment in the video where we see the Blackbird come out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, between that cloak, the hat, I'm like, this is definitely giving me some Undertaker vibes. So for
Yeah.
you, I wanted to ask, I briefly mentioned how I'm in the wrestling world. So for you, how much did wrestling kind of come into play? Because there are also definitely some Sting vibes going on there. So I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I've talked about it before, every single part of like how I see aesthetics, or how if I were to design something, all of that is played. It all has factors of the things that kind of piqued my interest first as a kid. And for me, that was equal parts, Undertaker, Sting during the kind of Crow era of Sting, just as much it was Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, just as much as it was the Misfits or Batman, obviously, or V for Vendetta or Watchmen, or all these other things that play into my mind, and how, not even just down to like how I look aesthetically. So when tasked with the idea of creating a comic book character, those things all find their way into it, whether I mean to or not. So, there's definitely people. It's sort of funny. Everyone that looks at that character finds their own reference point. Like some people will say, "Oh, it looks just like Rorschach," or some people will say, "Oh, it looks just like V from V for Vendetta," or it just looks like the Undertaker, or you know what I mean. Like you kind of find, it's an interesting kind of litmus test to how people are entering the equation
Right.
when they see certain things. So some people will insist that it looks just like the Undertaker, while some people would insist that it looks just like Rorschach. Which, if you looked at those two characters separately, they do not share really any through line besides wearing a hat sometimes. So, but to me, those things are all completely valid. And I made the costumes for the Blackbird and all of the ancillary characters. I designed the costumes for all the band's Phantom Tomorrow costumes, and all of those things are hugely influenced by the pageantry and ridiculousness of 90s wrestling, and the gothic imagery of the Crow, and all those types of things. That's what makes me excited. And so to be able to add all of those spices, so to speak, to something that we're creating, it's like a dream come true for me.
I love all those little nuances. It kind of, it's neat that you can have so many different takes on it. So regardless of who's watching it, there's some way that they're going to relate it to themselves. But for you, I guess since we're in the world of wrestling right now talking about it, if you could kind of have your own wrestling gimmick, what do you think that would be? Have you ever given that any thought?
I've never, no, I would say that when I was a kid, I just wanted to be exactly Sting or Ultimate Warrior, just because there was like,
That
there's the through
energy.
line there is I liked a lot of face makeup, is basically the story of that, right? Like, or vampiro, like anyone that wore a lot of face paint, I was way into. Into that, in that regard, also masks. So like early Kane, all that kind of stuff. By the way, another text message there just came up. Just want to let everybody know.
We'll be able to write
But yeah,
him
so
very soon.
yes, if I could be any of those kind of elements, I would say that my favorite thing about the early incarnation of the Crow era Sting was that like he was silent, right? And it was so creepy. And the intro, actually, people don't necessarily know this. For all of the Andy Black tours from I think the summer of 2017 on, I have used Sting's entrance music as our intro song, and no one's ever mentioned it. It's the most bizarre thing. No one's ever been like, "Hey, is that the old Sting song?" But yeah, so we re-recorded it to go into the song "Stay Alive." Like we changed it a little bit, and so like I just love that era. So I guess my guy would be like it would be the Blackbird. You know, it would be a silent, watchful protector who's just stoic. You know.
I can see it. I love that you mentioned Vampiro as well, because it's kind of interesting. I interviewed him the same year I first interviewed you, and it's kind of strange that when I was looking back at pictures of him in makeup, I was thinking of Black Veil Brides and just some of those similarities. So it's very neat
Yeah,
that you
no, it's
brought him
totally
up.
there. It's totally there. I mean, even
Yeah,
stuff like Mankind and like just like things that were weird or gothy or whatever you want to say. Like when I was a little kid, that was hugely influential to me. And I didn't really see any difference between like when WCW had the Demon, which was the Kiss
Kiss.
wrestler, like it made perfect sense to me as a kid because I thought the Kiss was basically wrestling anyway. Like to me, the look was all the same. And I was like 5 years old. So now I know a lot of Kiss fans were like, oh, that was the jumping the shark moment. But to me,
So
it was
many
like, this is
people.
all the same, you know? But,
Definitely.
to me, it's like anything that has that really large, um, larger than life imagery is like, that's the shit, man. That's what I love.
Oh, I'm on board, definitely. Well, the last thing I want to ask you about is kind of bringing it back to the first time I had you on the show. We were talking about some recent tattoos that you got, being the Batman one on your neck. So I would love to know, just bringing it all back, tying it together, what is the last tattoo you had done?
It's this on my neck. I haven't gotten a tattoo in like 2 years. And I was going to, like, I had a whole plan of finishing this sleeve. Um, and then the pandemic started and I was like, nah, I'm gonna hold off. Even though that now tattoo shops are open in LA, I was just like, I'm gonna wait until until that's over. So the last thing I got was this abstemious on my neck, which at the time was I was newly in my life as someone who was like giving a shit about my body and myself, and sobriety and eating healthy and all that kind of stuff was new and important to me. And I wanted to give myself a reminder of kind of how internally, like, there is a level of strength and power to the idea that I have transcended dark moments in my life and become something that I can be a little bit more proud of. And so it's on my neck. I see it every day. People like it or hate it. I know that there were some people in our audience that was like, that ruined your face. You know what I mean? But that's
Oh,
fine. But
people
in
can be
any event,
lovely, can't they?
yes, yes. But in any event, it's sort of funny over time. You don't even see the tattoos on your body really because you're seeing them every day. But anytime I am reminded of it, it's good for me because it's while I no longer have any trepidation or need positive affirmations necessarily, it was important to me to be able to stamp myself with like you did something substantive and made yourself someone that is worthy of being proud of, as opposed to how I had felt before, which is that I kind of had dropped the ball.
I love that. It's a really lovely meaning and reminder every day. It's like you really can't miss it. So I think that's
Can't
awesome.
miss it unless I
Can't
wear
miss it.
very high turtleneck. I
I was
can
about
just
to say,
always
unless you
wear a
get into like
turtleneck.
that
Yeah.
turtleneck goth phase, bringing it back.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know. I may just, yeah, I'll just go, but maybe like, so I did for a time on my podcast, I was wearing turtlenecks and then everybody said I just look like goth Steve Jobs. So I ditched that, but maybe I'll go back and wear like,
Maybe.
blue dad jeans and a black turtleneck.
Right. Wait, you could look like The Rock, honestly. Remember that photograph of him in the dad jeans and the
With a
turtleneck?
fanny pack, yeah,
Yes.
maybe that. By the way, I want to say, because we're wrapping this up,
Mhm.
there has never been a worse phone positioning and chair for anyone to sit in the history of Zoom than what I'm doing right now. Because it is so far below me, I have to bend forward so much that my back feels like I'm 950 years old. Like my back is creaking
Wow.
right now because I have no back on the chair. Like this is I want everyone who's watching to know that I really struggled for this interview, and I hope that it came off okay because I am very sad about how my back feels. So if you saw me doing weird, like
You're trying to just
it's yeah.
readjust.
I just want to explain why I'm moving around so much during the interview.
I appreciate the explanation. I appreciate you staying put, even though, it might not have been the most comfortable. But thank you so much, Andy, for joining me once again on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm going to let you go and stretch over there.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Alicia. I'm very excited to do this again. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And congratulations on all your success. I tease about the nickname thing because I love nicknames, but you really have done so well for yourself. And it's so awesome to see that. Anytime somebody that we have, worked with or done interviews with in the past really succeeds and grows, it's so awesome to see. And so, yeah, a huge congrats to you. And yeah, can't wait to do it the next time.
That means so much coming from you. Thank you so, so much. Everyone watching, this has been the incredible Andy Black from Blackville Brides. Be sure to check out interview 1, 2, 3, and plenty more on the horizon, and AliciaToot.com
all
for
the
more
way to
exclusive.
70.
All the way.
And it's done.
Just thank you so much, everybody. We will see you next time. Bye.